Real talk about real life. Spiritual maturity. Faith. Leadership. Growth. Welcome to Life Beyond Sunday podcast.
Hey guys.
Hi.
How are you?
Good.
How y'all doing? Caffeinated?
Yeah.
TJ, you don't have caffeine
Plenty of
anymore,
caffeine.
right?
No, he does.
Oh, I do.
Oh, he does?
I already drank enough coffee for
Okay.
that.
All right. Well, you
Never
wake
know
up
what
at
you're
3
gonna
in the
get.
morning. I feel like you'd be on cup number 7 by now or something.
Nope. 2.
Okay. All right. So today we're going to talk about leading upstream, okay? Which is a topic I think that affects all of us in one way or another.
Okay.
Whether you're at your home
Yeah.
or in a place of business or if you're in ministry or at a church. So every person is faced with a situation where they want to, or not every person, but a lot of people want to influence the culture, the process. They want to make changes, particularly like we mentioned in a business organization or in ministry. But a lot of people don't hold an authoritative position, right? Not everybody's in management. Not everybody's their own entrepreneur. Not everybody owns a company. So today we're going to kind of digest the idea of how do you influence when you're maybe not in a place where you hold a title. Right? But we're going to start with, I want to ask if you could influence upstream, either in your city or your state or something like that in Parkland, what's something that you would like change immediately?
For me, it would be youth sports would no longer be able to participate on Sundays.
Yes.
So I think that if I could, in fact, I've talked to our city about this and said, hey, if we're really about family and building the family unit and creating the greatest homes that we can, then us facilitating so many days, because they're practicing Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It's 7 days a week. And if we really wanted to build families and homes, what we would do is we would help eliminate the option for those families so that they actually could have rest, so they could have family time, so they could actually build
I would
healthy
agree.
homes. And so it's been something that I've actually advocated to from our local city officials here in Parkland.
Now,
granted, it hasn't happened,
TJ.
so apparently I don't have a lot of influence.
you're trying.
But I am making the effort.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
You would do the same thing?
100%. I think it's the biggest.
I was thinking you guys were going to get rid of like roundabouts.
I kind of like those.
You like the roundabouts?
I actually like the roundabouts.
Yeah.
What I don't like is the people that don't know how to drive a roundabout.
Right.
That's why I don't like the roundabout, because sometimes you're stuck in that line and you're like, it's your turn, dude. You're supposed to go. It's very frustrating.
No, I like it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, do you guys want to know what I would change?
Sure. No.
Okay. I'm going to get in trouble. You ready? Okay.
I don't know if I'm ready.
All right. She's like, we can edit it out.
Oh,
I'm going to
boy.
go for it. If I could change something in Coastal,
Oh, coastal.
Oh, coastal.
Oh,
Okay.
Lord.
this is why I'm nervous.
boy.
I'm sweating under
Oh,
this
boy.
sweater. You see it? Okay.
I'm nervous too.
It's not, it's more of a personal thing than like she was like, okay. I've started serving in First Impressions. I would change the shirt. Because it's not that I don't like the blue. I appreciate it's just not, it doesn't work well for my skin
It's not
tone.
flattering for you?
No.
And what
it's
would
not.
you choose?
So really what everything is about you.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
As long as
So
we've
I
got that
would
established.
am I advocating for it now?
Well, sure.
No, okay.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Let's hear it.
I just think, I feel like I might. No, okay. Can I advocate for myself? I have to do it like for a mission-based thing, right? I'm failing. This is why I need this, because
You're not
all
leading
my
upstream very well.
No, all my reasons are myself. Like,
Yeah,
it's
I know
not a
that's-
flattering
Exactly.
color, and it makes me look a little bigger. So I would go for like a gray. or
And
like
so
a
that you would
bone.
blend in with everyone else and nobody would know, like, all of these people are here to greet me. You know, all those people in the blue shirts, man, they are here because they're serving and they're loving their community.
Yeah, we're trying to
and
actually make you stand out,
5
not
blue
blend in.
shirts greeted me when I walked in today.
Yes, I know. But
Oh,
I'm just
okay.
saying, I'm not saying I'm good at influencing upstream, but I am saying that there was something that if I had to pick, that's what I would go with. That, and can I give one more? I don't think
Oh
you should
my.
do tryouts for worship. I think I think that if the person has the heart in the right place, I feel like the Holy Spirit can move.
Well, good. And nobody would come to our church if we didn't do that. So congratulations.
If you heard some of the people
Kelly,
that
you
tried
made
out,
the worship team. Congratulations.
Exactly.
We will turn off your microphone and you can go.
Jen and I could do a duo. We could sing together and then we just leave my mic lower. It'd be great. Okay. Anyways, I feel like... All right. Now we're going into the nitty gritty.
Okay.
now we know why people have so much trouble influencing
Oh,
up.
boy.
Because they don't know how to. This was my case in point. This is why I need this segment. Okay. How do you know when it's time to try to change an organization or that your intentions are right? So let's say I work in a business and I'm like, man, I think communication is not functional. I think that the team culture isn't good. I think that we don't know how to work together. I think it's egocentric, whatever. How do I know that it's time to try to create influence in that? Like, how do I know my intentions are in the right place? It's not for self-gain, that kind of thing. That's the first question, which is why I led with the shirt example, because that would be for self-gain. See how I did that there? Full wrap circle? Okay, go ahead.
Gosh. It's like Kelly's nervous and she's just like, I don't know what to do right now. I think partially in this conversation, particularly with the question that you just asked, I think a lot of people tend to come if you're in an organization and you're seeing things that stand out, or I think these things need to change. I think it's easy to come with, I see this, I see this, I see this, I see this, I see this. All these things need to change. How you influence upstream, I think, is you can come with those things that you see need to change, but you also need to come with a solution. I think too many people come with a problem and no solution. And they're just like, here's the problem, fix it kind of thing, instead of, hey, I see these things and here's how I think that we can solve them. And I'm more than happy to lead the way in that. And so I think when people come with not just the problem, but the solution and the willingness to be part of the solution, number one, I'll at least listen and have a conversation, because you're not just coming to complain or to point out terrible things or things that need to be fixed, but you're coming and going, I'll lead the way in this, and here's how I think we can do it.
The other thing I would say is that you're probably not going to influence up if you're not influencing down first.
Yep.
So if you're not crushing it in your job, if you're
not
not
listening.
one of the best in your area, you're going to have no sway at all up if you're not doing well where you are.
Yeah, if you don't lead downstream, you're not going to be able to lead upstream.
Yeah, so a lot of people, the people that come and want to change things, I'm like, but you're the worst person at your job.
Yeah.
You show up late, you have a bad attitude, there's a litany of lists that go along, and that yet they're wanting to change things.
Yeah.
And so I would say, are you excellent?
At what you're already
achieving?
doing.
Yeah. Are you the model employee? Because when you are, you get to have influence up. But if you're not, you're never going to have, as a boss, I'm never going to really take you seriously. Because you haven't proven that you're worth having an opinion.
Right. Are you solving problems in the area that you're in now, or are you just creating them? Are you know?
What do you think is the biggest problem that you're like, man, this will crush an organization, a business, a church? What do you think, maybe not a church, because you guys spoke to that a couple episodes ago, where you're like, gossip is probably the worst thing that we can, but just in terms of what do you think is the worst thing that an organization or a business can have, that you're like,
bad culture?
Bad culture.
Culture, Peter Drucker said, culture trumps strategy every day of the week. It eats strategy for lunch. You can have the greatest strategy in the world, you can have the greatest product in the world, but if you have a terrible culture in your organization, it doesn't matter how good the product is, it's going to turn out bad.
Yep.
What are signs of bad culture? Bad culture. What's something that okay, I'm in an organization right now, Shayla, TJ, how do I know that I'm in a place that's that functions well, that's healthy? What is how do I know, or what are the signs that things are not, what is bad here?
I think accountability and feedback are typically signs of good culture. I think a lot of times we talk about bad culture. I think it's better to point out what is good culture. And so like, I think an organization with a high level of accountability, which means you have objectives and goals that are spoken to you, you know what they are, you know what those things are, and the people that are actually holding you accountable to those and willing to go, hey, listen, we're not hitting these. So what's happening? Have I not given you the right information? Have I not given you the right resources? Have I not given you the right education? And if all of those things are happening, then we know it's not the culture that's around you. It's actually just your performance. So what are we going to do to help increase that performance?
I think it's a culture that also has values that they live by and that you're measured by those values, you know, like if you don't know what you value as an organization, just kind of anything goes. And then you end up having these little subcultures in your organization that have been created because people are just going to start creating what they are rather than having an adherence to this is who we are and what we want to represent as an organization, so that, and then there's conversation centered around that, you know?
Yeah. And what are some tools that you think we can use to like try to influence our workplace? You know, like what, you know, you said first you show up crushing it.
Yeah.
And actually the Bible gives us a couple of biblical examples of people who like influenced Upstream, right? Like Joseph, he
crushed it
in prison. And then they were like, here, you know, come Esther, right? I think those are probably the two more popular ones, where she basically risks her life to be able to save a people. So, you know, practically speaking, I think you spoke of one way, like you just have to crush it at work so that you have a voice.
Yep.
Is there other ways that you're like, hey, here are practical examples of like, you know, show up early, leave late, or take care of people, you know, what are...
Well, I think your Esther one is a great one. You have to live with humility. Like, you're not coming to and live for others. Like, you're not coming to raise yourself up.
Right.
She came to help a people. Like, it wasn't just about her. It wasn't like, I don't like the color of this shirt, we need to change it. It was like, man, you know what? This is gonna hurt a lot of people.
Brought the shirt back.
I did.
You had to. You couldn't leave it back 10 minutes ago, right? Okay. No.
She was like, you know, like, this entire people is going to be eliminated, and I want you to see the value of them. I want you to see, you know, what this decision is going to do. And I want you to remember how much this people has impacted your kingdom. I want you to remember those things. And so I think it's important that your intentions behind it aren't based on just yourself, but they're based on something bigger than you. You're thinking about the whole of the organization. You're thinking about the good of the people. Like, we have a value, you know, you talked about don't gossip. We have a value as a church staff of we believe the best. So what that means is that if somebody comes to us and is like, oh my gosh, can you believe what Kyle did and how he said this and what he did? I'd go, whoa, that doesn't sound like Kyle. Like, I've known Kyle for 10 years. Like, man, Kyle has impeccable character. He has a great work ethic. I'm going to believe the best about Kyle, and I'm going to go, hey, have you talked to Kyle about this?
Right.
Well, no, I haven't talked to him. Well, the Bible says that before you bring it to other people, you should go have a conversation with him. So I'm going to believe the best. Why don't you believe the best about Kyle and go ask, hey, when this happened, explain to me what was going on so that you can have a better understanding. And then all of a sudden they have a conversation. It creates a healthy dialogue, and therefore we have a healthy culture.
Yeah.
Well, and I think part of that too it's not just this pie in the sky, like, let's just be positive about this person. We believe the best. It's really being intentional about having hard conversations so that we can continue to fight for unity.
Yeah.
But most people just want to talk about it instead of talking to,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. I actually, it's interesting because like in the workplace, sometimes you are dealt with different types of people, right? And the Bible talks about you being shrewd as a snake. Is that the right thing too? Like how do you balance like, oh, I'm going to believe the best, but also like wisdom and discernment of like the situation, and maybe this person has ill intent. Like, how do you balance those two? Like, you know?
I think it's being willing to have the hard conversation.
Okay, so you're always in favor of like, okay, let's approach and say, hey, what was your intention in this?
Well, it's one of the things that we've used in our marriage. It's like, hey, when you did this, this is how it made me
I
feel.
don't think you intended
to do this.
Okay.
I don't think
This is how it came across.
So I come with the attitude of like, I don't think this was your heart in this. I don't think this was your intention in this. And they can prove me differently by what they say. And then I know that now I know based on that, now I'm going to be shrewd because I realize I can't trust them or whatever it may be, but I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt on the front end.
And do you think we can have those conversations with authority? Like, do you think like, okay, now I have to have this conversation with my manager or the owner or...
I think, but that's where the humility comes in. It's going, I'm not going to take it from an attitude of I'm right and you're wrong. I'm coming to seek understanding. So I'm going to come and I'm going to listen first and then respond. I think most of us come into conversations with, here is how I'm going to respond without listening to what the other person's actually going to say.
Yeah.
And if we would actually take the time to listen and to get it says get wisdom above all else, get understanding. So like, I'm going to have the wisdom to go have the conversation with them so I can get the understanding. So then I can move forward based on how that conversation goes. And I think that people, if you'll actually listen to them, you'll actually start to decipher and understand their heart and their intention a lot more. And you'll realize that some of those people you think are total jerks because of how they respond in things, that their heart isn't actually to be a jerk. It's just their natural knee-jerk reaction. And once you get past that, you realize it's like one of the trustees of our church. I call him an M&M. And the reason I call him an M&M is because when you meet him on the outside, he is hard. Like you think, oh man, I don't know that I'd really like him. But once you understand that he's hard initially, but on the inside, like he is so sweet, you just have to break through that shell. And once I understood him, I was like, oh my gosh, this guy he's one of my favorite people on the planet. But your first meeting with him, you're like, I'm not sure.
soft skills are a 0?
Just he's Middle Eastern.
Okay.
So he's from Lebanon. So his approach in life is way different because the culture he comes from is way different than our Americanized culture. But if I never had the time to have a conversation with him, I would never know that.
But I also think on the flip side of that, as good leaders and people that are leading an organization, we have to be very self-aware too. Like my biggest frustration so many times is when people are like, well, that's just how I am. No, that's how you choose to be.
Yeah.
Like you can choose to be a different way. And so just because that's my personality, if it's consistently rubbing people the wrong way, then I need to evaluate and go, maybe I need a different approach. Yeah. So, yeah.
And how do I balance because obviously wanting to grow in an organization is a good thing. It's not, not a bad thing.
Sure.
Not at all.
So how do I balance okay, I have a need here where I want to, like Joseph surely wanted to get out of prison, right? He was serving, but he was also like, hey, remember me when you leave this place, right?
And they forgot him.
And they forgot him there. I would have been mad. My first thing as governor would have been like, slay them all. No, I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding.
No, you're not.
but he had this practical approach that he needed, that he was like, I do want to get out of here. Esther too, right? She approached it with humility, but she saved the Jewish people, but she was also a Jew, and they were like, don't you think that you're going to escape this too? And she was like, yeah, So how do you balance the need for your self-achievement, your accomplishment, and your wanting to grow alongside I do want to influence the organization well,
So I think if you use the situation of Joseph, I feel like in every season of Joseph's life, he was faithful and diligent to do everything that was before him. And because he was faithful and diligent and excellent at what he did, people noticed that, and he was naturally elevated. I don't think he was necessarily looking around and going, how can I get there? Even though that was prophesied over his life, he dreamed that, all of those things. I think that he was faithful and excellent and diligent at whatever was put before him. Yeah. And I think people tend to jockey for position rather than a lot of times just being diligent, excellent, because as leaders of an organization, I'm looking for somebody that's faithful, diligent, good attitude, whatever. Those people are I'm naturally going to elevate them because they're not necessarily jockeying. They're not positional leaders that are just leading because I have a title or position. It's like, no, I'm executing at a very high level with a great attitude and excellence in everything that I do. And those are the people I'm going to promote, you know.
And in Esther's case, what did she do? She went and prayed and fasted. Like there was preparation.
Yes.
And I think that if you're constantly preparing for the next thing, then when opportunity knocks, you'll be ready to answer.
Yep.
But if you're not prepared and you're just longing, then I'm going to pick the person that's prepared.
Yeah.
Well, and I also want to see people that are caring for their people and their team and their like people that are below them, you know, or people also their teammates, you know, that is extremely important.
Yeah.
So,
and let me ask you this. You guys brought up the word, I think it was Shayla that said self-aware. Mm-hmm. How do I know I'm self-aware? How do I know if I'm self-aware?
I think if you're not self-aware, then it's hard to know if you're self-aware. But I think a good practice is to have conversations with, you know, your people that are below you, beside you, and above you. And there's a question that we learned a long time ago, like, what is it like being on the other side of me? If you start asking that question to the people below you, beside you, above you, it can tell you a lot about yourself. Because if everybody's saying the same thing, you don't have to be self-aware to go, I think I have an issue in this area, you know, because you're asking the question. So I think it's important to evaluate with the people around you that helps you give an awareness of how you lead.
There's a great book that John Maxwell wrote a couple of years ago called The Self-Aware Leader. And I actually did it with a bunch of business guys in our church. And it's probably one of the best books on leadership and just being self-aware as a leader yourself. And he gives you questions in there to ask yourself. And I think part of that, being self-aware, is being honest about yourself. Not the preferred version of you, but the current reality of you.
Okay, that's good.
It's not easy.
It's not easy.
Yeah. How? What was the question again?
What's it like being on the other side of me? Hey, Kelly, let me ask you that question right now.
Great, Shayla. I love you. I love you so much.
So we actually had a consultant come in and do, like, it was part of he was helping us just build our staff culture back in the day. And that was one of the questions. We had to go around to every staff person and ask them, what's it like being on the other side of me? And it sucked.
Yeah.
I mean, it did, because like answers that they would say, like, let's be honest, when we get confronted with the reality of who we are, sometimes we don't like it. Mm-hmm. And it's hard. And I remember him telling us, don't debate what they say.
Right.
Just receive it.
Yep.
And then you take it, and then you have to do something.
Let it make you better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it can be encouraging too.
Yeah.
You know, like, okay, I need to keep doing that.
Yeah.
Because people are encouraged or
Not
challenged
encouraged.
or
TJ's like, I wasn't encouraged from that conversation. No.
TJ's never asked me that question.
Yeah, no. Shayla's the only one I didn't ask her.
Really? You should ask her.
Yeah.
Not here. Actually, you know what? That makes for a great podcast. Maybe we should ask her here. Okay, so if you guys could kind of to finalize, if I'm in an organization and I'm going to give my boss, my manager, my leader 2 or 3 books for him to read, what books would you recommend? So, right, let's say my way to influence Upstream is I'm going to buy my manager, company owner, blah, 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 3 books.
I would say that's a bad idea.
Yeah.
No, it's just I mean, I'm not going to do that.
If I were you, I would read those books. I would read some books. And if something really impacted you, I'd go, man, I read this book and here's what it taught me and how it changed me. Like, I think that this might be a great book for our company to read. Would you read it and tell me what you think?
No. Yes, I get it. It was a figurative question. I'm not suggesting anybody go and do that. Like, you know, like
well, that's what you asked.
That's what you asked us to do.
Self-aware leader. Here you go. Merry Christmas. No, that's not the idea. It's more like if you, I guess my question is, if you want to influence an organization, if you're let's say this, if you're a business owner, what 3 books would you recommend to read? that would influence culture, that would, that you think are vital for an organization or a business?
I mean, if I were starting a business today, the first book I would read is Traction, by I can't remember his name. Traction.
We'll try to link it on the episode.
Yeah. It's about organization, structure, establishing culture and values, all the things that we are kind of talking about that I think lead to a healthy culture.
Boundaries for leaders,
and probably developing the leader within you. I think before you can lead other people, you got to lead yourself. If you're not leading yourself well, you're not going to lead other people well. And so,
boundaries for leaders is all about like the fact that you're ridiculously in charge, and every single issue in your organization comes back to you.
You
either created it or you've allowed something.
Yeah.
And so you either have allowed something too long and it's frustrating you and you need to have some conversations, or it's a frustration that you've created on your own. So it has to come back to this intense ownership of you as the leader. And to change culture.
It really takes away you blaming other people for the issues. Like you have to take responsibility for it.
Yeah.
So like everything that we don't like about church isn't anybody else's fault. It's our fault.
Yeah.
So it's a big deal, and I think that those would be 3 books that we would probably say.
All right. Yeah. Thank you guys for the recommendation.
Yeah.
I was kidding about the shirts.
No, you're not.
There's a little truth in every joke. Somebody told us that one time.
All right. Thank you guys, and we'll see you guys next week.
Yeah.
Hey guys, thank you so much for tuning in for another episode of Life Beyond Sunday. We loved hanging out with you guys. If you wouldn't mind liking, subscribing, commenting, we would love to hear from you. And we can't wait to see you next week.